Yuval Noah Harari, I'm very happy to see you. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here.
Well, we're going to talk about your book, Nexus. And after reading it, I've been thinking a lot about, well, the end of the world and the annihilation of the human species. I mean, do you go around thinking like that as well?
I think it's a possibility, but it's not deterministic, it's not inevitable. The whole point of writing a book warning about these dangerous scenarios is that these are just scenarios. We still have the power, the resources to prevent them. But, you know, every previous technology, in a way, empowered us. Even nuclear weapons, of course, they could destroy us, but only if we decide. Atom bombs empowered us because the bomb cannot decide who to bomb, who to kill. You always need a human being to make the decisions. AI is different. It's the first technology in history that can make decisions by itself, which means that it's no longer a tool, it's an agent. It's an independent agent. Similarly, it's the first technology in history that can create new ideas by itself. And of course also invent new weapons. So it's like a nuclear bomb that can invent a more powerful nuclear bomb that can invent an even more powerful nuclear bomb. It doesn't have to go in that direction. It's not inherently evil or bad. It has a lot of positive potential. It could provide us with the best healthcare in history. It could help us prevent catastrophic climate change. And this is really just the beginning of the process. You know, if you think about the evolution of organic beings, so it took billions of years to get from amoebas to dinosaurs. Digital evolution is millions of times faster. And if GPT-4 or ChatGPT, this is the amoeba, so how would the T-Rex look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right that it won't be what we imagine, that it won't be like in Matrix or Terminator where artificial intelligence will roam the streets and kill people.
No.
But so what will it look like? I mean, what are the potential dangerous outcome?
It's not like there is one big computer somewhere that is trying to take over the world. AIs, we need to think about them as millions, potentially billions, of new non-human agents that fill more and more positions in more and more systems, bureaucracies, corporations, armies, governments. Again, making decisions about the world and about our life. And we, in the process, not just losing our power, but losing the ability to understand the world. Because increasingly we don't understand how these things make decisions. We don't understand these extremely complex systems. I mean, what we have seen already in recent years is that AIs are taking over to some extent our culture, our society, the conversation. You know, on social media, some of the most important decisions about what kind of content to promote is being taken by algorithms. And the AIs decide to promote hate speech and fake news and conspiracy theory because they were given the task of increasing user engagement. This is like the holy grail of social media companies, is increase user engagement. And the algorithms discovered, by trial and error, by experimenting on millions of people, that outrage gets engagement. And this has already resulted in increased polarization in societies all over the world, from Myanmar to the United States. And again, this is just the beginning, because so far these algorithms were promoting content created by human beings. Somebody needed, a human being had to invent the conspiracy theory that then the algorithm promoted. Now, with the new generation of AIs, they can create the content by themselves.
Well, do you also think, I mean, in Nexus you draw from history to predict or paint a picture of what might happen if we don't regulate AI now or soon. And I mean, you write about the other technical revolutions, like the printing press and the industrial revolutions. What do you think is the most important lesson that we can learn from history to use today?
I mean, there are two lessons. First of all, that if you create a completely free market of information, truth will not prevail. Truth is more complicated, more costly, more painful than fictions and lies and mythologies. You know, even as a journalist, you want to just invent some fictional story, that's very easy. You want to write the truth, you have to invest a lot of time and energy and effort. Similarly, if you think about the other side of the equation, the audience, for the audience to connect to a truthful story is often more difficult because reality is complex, it's complicated. So it demands a lot of effort to really understand a true story. Whereas a fictional story, you can make it as simple as possible. So if you want the truth to win, you have to tilt the balance, you have to invest something. The other lesson that we learned from previous big technological revolutions is that humans are extremely adaptable, but the process of adaptation is costly and dangerous. When humans began to develop industrial technology, nobody knew how to build a good industrial society. So there were various experiments. Imperialism was a huge experiment in building industrial societies. There were lots of people in the 19th and early 20th century who thought an industrial society, it has to be an empire because you need to control the source of raw material and you need to control the markets. So we have to build an empire. And this type of thinking, you know, it spread. Britain and France and Japan and Russia and the United States, they all went about building empires. And with terrible consequences for hundreds of millions of people until people realized, no, you can build an industrial society which isn't an empire. And similarly, you had other people who said the only way to build a really efficient industrial society is communism. And you had this huge experiment with communism in the Soviet Union and other places, which again was extremely costly. And the same with fascism. Fascism was also a huge experiment, failed experiment in how to build an industrial society. So you can say, okay, after all these experiments, after imperialism and communism and fascism and the two world wars, we finally got it right. And we can argue about it, but let's say that we got it right. If we have to go again through this process, this time with AI and bioengineering, we don't know how to build these kind of AI-based societies, so we have to go through another cycle of failed experiments, more imperialism and totalitarianism and world war, and in the end, we'll get it right. This is very bad news. So the historical lesson is don't just think about the end result.
But do you also think that we can learn from literature? I mean, haven't we been warned by Mary Shelley, Philip K. Dick, William Gibson, Isaac Asimov?
We have been warned, and it's very important, it's very good that we have been warned. I think the most important literary genre of our era is science fiction, because it attempts it engages with all these possibilities and attempts to warn us about the dangers and to speculate about how to build better societies. But for this to be successful, I think that science fiction needs to really dig deep into how technology changes in a fundamental way relations between human beings. Because you have a lot of science fiction which is just, you know, like taking a very old story and reenacting it with robots. So you can do like Romeo and Juliet with robots or in space with laser guns and spaceships, and it is still Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it doesn't tell you anything new about how humans relate to each other.
But you also write that we need more fiction about bureaucracy.
Yeah, this is, I think, the biggest lacuna in art is that art is not very good in explaining bureaucracy.
We have Kafka.
We have Kafka, we have Catch-22. It's not completely missing. But if you look, say, at the big blockbusters... It's not the
bestsellers, no.
Yes, it's not the bestsellers, it's not the blockbusters. And this is a problem because our life is managed mainly by bureaucratic systems. But then when we open the television and we watch a TV series about politics, it's likely to ignore the bureaucracy and instead to tell us a medieval or even Stone Age story about dynastic politics. The focus is on a family or a couple of families and the kind of basic biological dramas that characterize competition within or between families. So you have something like Succession with the kids competing for the attention of the father. This is a very important story which was crafted by evolution already millions of years before there were humans. This is, this is chimpanzee stuff. They know it also. And it's not a good guide for how politics in the 21st century actually happens. Because if we don't have these kinds of stories, then people don't understand the world. They easily fall victim to conspiracy theories about, the deep state and all these, cabals that control the world. But in fact, it's bureaucracy. It's not conspiracy. And it also makes it more difficult for us to change the system. You feel helpless. Evolution kind of prepared us for death by a tiger, not for death by a document.
No.
And today, a lot more people are dying because of documents than because of tigers.
Yeah. So, are you positive, are you optimistic, or are you pessimistic for our future? I know it's a hard question.
I try to be a realist. I mean, basically optimism is like saying, oh, everything will be okay. And pessimism, no, we are all doomed. Both these positions, they make us abdicate responsibility. Because if in the end everything will be okay, why bother? You don't need to take action. And it's the same if we are doomed, so why waste whatever little time we have on taking action? Realism is understanding that we have, as human beings, as a human species, we still have the resources, the technology, the wisdom to deal with major challenges, whether it's climate change or whether it's the rise of AI. Again, for instance, when I think about climate change, one of the things that people should realize is what is the cost of preventing catastrophic climate change? What size of a check do you need to write if you want to solve this? How much money? And nobody knows for sure, but the best estimates we have, something like 2%, 3%, maybe 5% of global GDP. Now, this is a lot, but it's completely doable. If I told you it's 50%, then forget it. We are not going to do it. It's not like if you're a dinosaur 65 million years ago, when the asteroid comes, then don't bother. I mean, there is nothing you can do about it. But we are not like the dinosaurs. To shift even 5% of our resources from one aim, one field to another, this is what politicians do all the time.
Well, Professor Harari, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.